And tonight we have Janardhan Chodagam sharing with us on emotional intelligence. I can't imagine anyone better experienced in discussing the combination of the two. Actually, it's one thing, but we'll discover that, won't we?
So, we're talking about emotional intelligence. I just want to tell you a little thing that Sister Elizabeth was saying that, that she finds somehow that I'm qualified to speak about this subject. My day job for a long, long time was on business intelligence. Anybody knows what that is? So real quick. You have cars, you drive, and there's a speedometer, right? There's a dashboard which shows a number of different things: speed, mileage, how much gas there is, how much oil there is, how hot the engine is, how far has it traveled since you bought the car, how far has it traveled since you reset the little tachometer. So that gives you a snapshot into what the state of the car is without you putting your head under the hood. Business intelligence, which I worked on for a number of years, is the same thing with the status of a company without you putting your head under the big volumes of books that there are about how profitable, how much inventory, how happy are the customers, how on time and how happy are the employees, etc., etc., etc. All the different metrics on the business and the state of affairs of the business in one snapshot. So why I'm saying this is that I used to actually joke about it that my day is spent in business intelligence and my evenings and weekends are in spiritual intelligence, which I guess somewhere in that amalgam comes this product called emotional intelligence. Trying to understand. There's a saying actually in business intelligence: if you can measure it, you can monitor it. If you can monitor it, you can manage it. So this is not on the outside, but now we're talking about some things of matters of the self. Can we be sensitive enough to be able to measure how I am feeling at any given point in time? So, we're not going to start with quite the video, we're going to start with the agenda slide. So what I'm going to talk about today is broadly three things: understanding intelligence and the different components of it, this thing about emotional intelligence and the confusion around emotional intelligence, and then we're going to wrap up with a meditation to experience that. Okay? How's that in terms of volume? Is this okay? Volume? Okay, great. So, everybody has a little notepad. If not, please pick up one. I have a quiz for you to get the game started. I don't know what's so funny, but I'm assuming there's something very funny.
No, we should have put one on those.
Okay, should I get you one? You might just get one. Okay, good. Can I get you one? Your husband is getting you one?
Thank you.
So please pick up a pen, pencil, whatever.
I have
Oh,
a
there you go.
I got it. Yeah.
You're good to go.
Okay. So folks, there are going to be some questions spoken to you in this video. And I'm going to pause at the end of each question, so give you a moment to write it down. And the idea is that we want to be able to answer all these questions.
Well, it's that point in the series where I look around me, note that my CGI surroundings are quiz showish, and obligingly provide a quiz to go in them. If you are a long-term, what do you call, viewers, watchers, sufferers, Anyway, if you're a long-term victim of these things, you'll know that I strive to find ways of constructing a quiz that cannot be answered just by looking the questions up on Google. And this time round, I think I've hit on a method which also solves another problem with quiz shows and pub quizzes, that they reward the possession of useless knowledge about the length of rivers or succession of kings, and not the stuff we actually should know. Accordingly, I present an emotional intelligence quiz. I might have already spotted the flaw, but don't worry, obviously I will not be judging this one myself. I mean, for God's sake, that wouldn't be so much the blind leading the blind as the blind blinding the sighted. No, the competition will be judged by an expert in emotional intelligence, by which I obviously mean a woman. Probably Ellie in the office, we're going to ask her later. Question 1. What do you do when you're briefly left alone with an acquaintance and they start crying? Brackets, not because of something you've done, close brackets. A. Immediately hug them. B. Pretend it's not happening and quietly leave. Probably this one, surely, please let it be this one. C. Ask them what's wrong, whilst desperately hoping they won't tell you. D. Put them at their ease by bursting into tears yourself.
Okay, so simple. You just say question 1 and put the letter next to it, what you genuinely feel, okay? And here I want you to tell me what you genuinely feel, not what the answer should be. Okay, so let's be a little... What if it's not here in the list? Okay, put an E. That's okay. Let's put an E there. Yeah.
It might depend what age they are.
I beg your pardon?
It might depend on what age they are. You know, 1 or 2 years
Okay, so just say from 2 to 80. Just average it out. Okay, can we move on to the next question? It's not that hard, right?
Question 2. You're going to a birthday drinks at a pub. It's for someone you used to work with, but don't work with anymore, but still keep in sporadic touch with, but would never meet one-on-one. You have their personal email, but not their phone number. That sort of friend. Okay, what do you take? A. A card and present. B. A card but no present. C. A present but no card because you're mad. D. Nothing. It's drinks in a pub. You don't have to buy stuff to go to the pub. Question 3. What?
What was the question again?
I think I'll have to back up.
Okay, so you meet somebody. Are you going to go have a evening with somebody, drinks with somebody who used to work with you but is no longer with, in your company? You don't have to meet this person. And so you go, say you celebrate, let's say his or her birthday. And then these answers. Okay? Complicated. Okay, has everybody got the answer? Move on? Okay, next.
Question 3. What do you do if someone smells? No, not what are you supposed to do, what do you actually do? It's a good friend, but not a best friend. He has better friends who see him more often and should be telling him stuff like this. A. Tell him in some unimaginable way. B. Tell his friends to tell him. Risk of course that they tell him you told them to tell him. His friends are dicks. C. Don't tell him, but as punishment for your cowardice, keep seeing him. D. Don't tell him and contrive only ever to meet him in wide open spaces or when you're suffering from a heavy cold.
I need you to repeat the question.
Okay, so this guy is very simple. He smells. That's the question, okay? And then you got these 4 answers. It's getting tougher.
What's the last one?
So the last one says, you don't tell him and conceive only to ever meet him in wide open spaces or when you have a heavy cold. Sort of like that.
Yeah.
This is a friend?
Well, Well, yeah.
Acquaintance or?
So he said, he explained it, right? So it's a friend, but he's not like that good of a friend like you're his best friend, but you're like the second tier of friend. Yeah. And then you leave, the second question is you leave his best friends to tell him, you know, that stuff, and you expect that they won't kind of talk about you being the best. Okay, so you got that part. Okay, can we move on?
Yeah.
All right.
Question 4. A friend has been declared bankrupt. You know, and he knows you know, but you haven't discussed it. When you go to the pub, how many times is it okay to let him buy the drinks? A. Not at all. The poor guy's bankrupt, you harmless monster. B. Once, to show that everything's normal, but not again, because it's not. C. Every other round as usual, because anything else would be patronising. D. Every other round as usual, because that's the system, damn it. Question 5.
So yeah, back up. Okay. Sorry. I mean, aren't these like natural to you guys? How come you want me to back up?
Not that natural.
Do you need a notebook, Sister Fern?
No, mine is always.
Yeah, right.
Okay?
Yeah.
All right.
Question 5. A woman you know has pointedly dressed up for an occasion. She looks fine. Not great, not awful. All you can see is the effort. What do you say? A. My God, you look amazing. B. My God, you look fine. Not great, but not awful. C. My God, that must have taken you ages. D. Right, shall we go? Back.
So back to the question.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, it's like, you know, come on, let's go, move on with the next thing. Like that. Okay, so that's the end of your pop quiz. So here's what I want you to do. Assuming that you have answers A to D, I want you to take 5 points for every A, put them next to the thing, 4 points for every B, 3 points for every C, and 2 points for every D. And those of you who got, like my friend here, Miranda got a E, she gets to put a 1 next to the E. Okay? If anybody got an E, you can put a 1 next to the E.
3 for B and 2 for.
Say that again? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Simple. For each of the A's, B's, C's, D's, okay?
Can I ask, I came in a little bit late, how many total questions were there?
5 questions were there.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay, then I want you to add it up. The next complex thing for today. Add up those 5 numbers. You can use fingers. If you need my fingers, I can loan them to you. I can give you my toes too. Okay, assuming that you all have that mathematical complexity sorted out, how many people in the room got a 25?
No.
Nobody. Okay, thanks for being honest. How many people scored 20 and above? Okay. How many scored 15 and above? How many scored 10 and above? How many scored below 10? Okay, that's fine. Thank you for your honesty. I appreciate it. Okay, so I'm not going to expand
I
on.
scored below 6.
You scored below 6.
Yes.
So did you get like a 0 on all of them? I got 1. You got 1 on all of them.
Yes.
None of the above.
I
Okay,
scored below
good.
6,
So that's
yeah.
kind of out of the box. Good.
Good.
And it is what it is, you know. So we're not going to expand on how great your number was, how little it was. It is what it is. Okay, so let's try to understand this topic about emotional intelligence. So first of all, I heard this wonderful description or definition of intelligence by a lady that you might have heard her name. Her name is Dadi Janki. She's the 98-year-old head of our organization, administrative head of this organization. Supremely is the head. So I was in a talk where she was explaining what intelligence means. Intelligence is where you have the wisdom to respond in that situation to that person who is in front of you at that time appropriately. Okay? So now, I don't think it gets any more practical than that. Did you get the question? Okay, so somebody did run right it down. Sorry?
The appropriation. Who is telling this is the
Appropriate answer, okay.
Is the superior?
Well, even if the superior said, you're probably not listening to that at that point in time. So this is how I actually talk about that later. I feel that the response is when you make that person feel empowered, to me, that is the appropriate response. And to keep me just very careful when listening to what I said. I said, making him or her feel empowered. Now that doesn't mean it is you're making the person feel good in all circumstances. Yeah, sometimes it means actually giving them the bitter pill, probably in a nice, with the little sugar-coated capsule, to help that person become stronger, whatever that means in that situation. Okay, is that fair? Okay. So yeah, so the word I think she actually uses the right way, the right place, at the right moment, the right intention. I think that right, if done in these many different ways, empowers an individual. So there are different kinds of intelligence, the first of which is rational intelligence, and this is something that we hear a lot about. We get paid salaries for this kind of things. We get jobs done many times, and we calibrate it based on this ability to excel in our academics and in our careers. Intuitive intelligence is something that's a little deeper. It's not necessarily that something that is in a book. It is something that actually you read a book and you let that information percolate, and then you build a set of tools that helps to become the guide when that right situation, the right moment, the right person with the right intention is inspired by something that is coming from within, a voice that's speaking from within. Then there is something called spiritual intelligence. Okay? Spiritual intelligence is something that I believe is when you come from a place of spiritual intelligence, it is the right thing for you, both for you and for the other person and for the entire universe. It works by the laws of the universe. Okay? So when you're tuned into that frequency, you're coming from a space of spiritual intelligence. And then there is this next thing called emotional intelligence. Now, it takes this journey back within and makes you come from a place of how am I feeling right now? Okay? Something which is not actually emphasized that much in much of our coursework and our training programs and the traditional forms of education. What we prescribe here is obviously a conglomerate of all of the above, right? We want to be able to have our fingers, our pulse on all of these things that creates this thing that we call the integrated realm of intelligence that helps us to come from a place not just of spirit and not just of emotions, but a place of rationale and a place of intuitive understanding. So what is this thing? So we're here to talk about this thing called emotional intelligence. By the way, that's also referred to as EQ. Q stands for? Quotient, exactly. So there's the IQ, then there's an EQ, right? Intellectual quotient, there's the emotional quotient. So there have been lots of studies, and I'm going to actually show you some data around the studies. And one of the things that has been found by there's a particular scientist called Daniel Goleman. I don't know if you've heard his name. He used to be
You wrote a book on
yeah, he actually wrote the book on emotional intelligence, and many people ascribe the phrase emotional intelligence that was actually invented by this individual.
Yeah.
So he, in his research, he wrote this book about 15 years ago, and he says that from all of his research, intellectual ability or intelligence by rationale, plus your technical ability, which are usually two of the things that you're calibrated on when you are recruited into a job, much follow the value or the importance of this thing called emotional intelligence. So he says, if you add up your technical skills and your rational abilities times 2, then you probably are comparing that with the value of emotional intelligence. Do you guys get what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Okay. So emotional intelligence becomes 85% of the distinguishing factor in the success of individuals or businesses. Okay, I'm going to talk more about that. IQ and technical abilities are important, so please let's not underrate them or undermine the importance of that. They become very important in being able to form the fundamental needs of the organization, right? So to be able to their entry-level positions, entry-level abilities, and 15% difference in profits have been observed in individuals who work for organizations that exhibit a high level of EQ. And what does that mean? They're open to bad news as well as good news. Right? So we don't take that as a threat to our identity. You understand? That is a very nice barometer or a smell test on how emotionally stable or emotionally intelligent you have evolved. If somebody says something, is that bothering me and my self-esteem? Okay? And then, like I mentioned to you before in that quote that Dadi Janki said, it comes down to the response. You don't react, but you respond and how you make other people feel. And I'll tell you what, folks, this, and many of you probably have discovered this and have experience with this extensively because of your industry, your work experience, and your being around and conscious about these kind of phenomena. Ultimately, any profession comes down to one thing. What do you think that thing is? I heard something.
Emotional IQ,
Emotional, yeah, but so communication is one. Another word. Simple, something practical, something simple, nothing, no fancy.
Results in a certain level.
Results at a certain level. So yes, we're talking about what kind of results. We have a broad spectrum of results.
Everyone wants positive.
Positive results. In what sense? All interaction with mankind is actually, basically, business is one form of that.
Isn't it self-expression?
Self-expression is the purpose of which we're here. But what is the basis of relationships?
Trust.
How you make that person feel. It is the relationships, or how much you are making that person feel a sense of goodness or belongingness. All relationships, and business is one little, circle in this big pie, in this other one little slice in the big pie, where ultimately all negotiations, all business transactions, anything that we do, interactions in this world, comes down to relationships. And relationships are prefaced or based on how you make the other person feel, like some of you said. Okay, so this actual study of 227 highly successful executives and their personality traits were compared with 23 executives who are highly technical, highly qualified, but who failed, and they compared and saw what were the measurable differences between these two individuals. So number one, almost always these 23 people who did not succeed had a very high level of expertise and IQ. Okay, so these are the people, these 23 people who failed. So that was, so I was very common among those people, because they were all the executives. The second, the fatal weakness was in emotional intelligence, and that was visible through traits like arrogance, over-reliance on brain power, and inability to adapt to shifts. Very stuck in their positions in the world. Okay? Now, I want you to think about this carefully, folks, because there's a lot of talk these days about taking a stance and finding your position on things in the world. And what I'm talking about here is actually that sort of a stand or a position, if it is not based on spiritual and emotional intelligence, can actually be counterproductive in your bigger endeavor to make this world a better place. Okay? So that is a form of ego, is what I'm trying to say. Okay? Shaking up some fundamentals here. And then these folks also had, obviously, arrogance results in a lack of communication, which somebody described, and therefore there is a weakness in the area of collaboration. So, what are the scientists talking about and saying, so we looked at some statistics. Now, what are some of the factors that form this part of IQ and your EQ within your personality? So the IQ is like the tip of the iceberg that's visible, or the conscious self that is overtly seen, and that is based on a high person high IQ is obviously very technically savvy, very ability to solve complex problems, but balanced decision making and performance is based on these 5 qualities according to scientists. The first of which is self-awareness. I mean, look how far we've come in this world, where scientists are talking about self-awareness as being an integral part of success as an individual or as a corporation. So what they mean, do you understand what they mean by self-awareness? It is to be able to know who I am and how am I feeling in these circumstances given all of these different inputs. It's a very nice way to summarize all of those things. There's so many different parameters. I can't put a detailed finger on each one of them to be able to calibrate it and compute that and so on and so forth. But net, when I can connect with my inner voice, it will give me a signal as to say, given all the circumstances, how do I feel? And come from the place of what they call the gut. Right? Second, whether you are not, you are motivated. I tell you folks, a lot of times when I used to work, I used to meet individuals. Very often I used to hear this answer that I'm in here, in this game, in this business, I'm in relationship with you today because I'm in here for the money. And that is very, in my opinion, very shallow. that will shake your fundamentals. The stock market goes up, things are looking good, stock market comes down, the housing market comes down, and you have got a punctured tire. You cannot continue to operate because your fundamentals are wrong. So ask yourself, what is it that motivates you? And I have a number of videos, I do a number of workshops on this, and I know that Sister Elizabeth is another person who's very good at this stuff. If you haven't sat in a workshop on finding your purpose in life, please put in a little slip recommendation and ask somebody to offer that if you have it. There's YouTube videos out there as well from us, and you could find that in the San Francisco Web Center's YouTube channel. Where we give some very simple tips on how to use your understanding of yourself to be able to determine what is your purpose, or at least start kind of looking in that direction. I know this is not a one-day answer, you're not just going to get it like that, but at least you start making a trajectory towards understanding what might be your purpose in this world. And that's going to be very important in this aspect of what is going to keep you motivated. Because that is where your energy aligns with the universal force, call it God, call it the spiritual energy, to be able to propel, to manifest that which you are meant to be doing here in this world. And the sooner that you align with it, the easier life is going to become, the more joyous it's going to become. What somebody else says, what somebody else does, whether you get accolades, respect, regard, compliments or not, is going to become immaterial. The force is within. The force is with you. The next, it is emotional intelligence has got to do with self-management, and we at the Brahma Kumaris say that before you can manage anything else in the world, anybody else in the world, learn to master yourself, and from that everything else will follow. People will respect you, people will listen to you, people will follow you, whether you say something or not, when you have learned to control your 5 senses. What are the 5 senses? The man in the black t-shirt?
The 5 senses?
Yeah.
Well, 5 senses.
Sight,
Sight, mouth,
Okay, stop. Yeah.
ears, listening,
Okay.
nose,
feeling,
Touch, yeah.
touch,
And smell. Okay.
smell, taste.
Okay, so taste, you got it, right? So you got the 5. So self-management is basically how I use my senses to respond when I am in certain circumstances. Right? Regardless of what the external conditions are, how am I able to respond to it is within my control. And that's truly actually the only thing within your control. How I feel and how I respond. And then it extends to, obviously, if I have control over my emotions and my responses, I obviously am in a situation to be able to communicate well and respond in a way that we talked about earlier, be able to either empower somebody, which probably includes also making somebody feel good, or stay silent. That's an empowerment. To be able to be quiet, especially in the midst of chaos, I think it's a great power. And then the 5th thing that scientists talk about is the aspect of empathy. Do you know what the difference of empathy and sympathy is?
Sympathy is when you actually have gone. I don't know which one, but sympathy, you've been through it before, and you know, and you can realize what that other person is going through because you've been through it before. And empathy is you've never been through it, but you have compassion for them. Is that right?
Sort of. Yeah.
Take the role of other.
Take the role of other. How is that different in sympathy and empathy? In both, you sort of do that. You take the role of the other, but...
Well, walking in their shoes, trying
Okay.
to see the perspective of the world through their eyes.
Okay, so that's one definition. So what's the difference between empathy and sympathy?
Oh, big difference somehow.
Okay, so all right, somebody can give it a shot. Yes.
I think sympathy is when you feel for someone, and empathy is when you feel with someone.
Very nice. I like that. It's the first time I've heard it said that way. That's very nice. Anybody else? I know some people. If anybody has a different answer than this, than what? What's your name?
Me, Claudia.
Yeah. Claudia. Anybody has? Sorry. So Claudia, do you want to just say it? Yeah, why don't you just?
Sure. Sympathy is when you feel for someone, and empathy is when you feel with someone.
Kind of empathy, you put yourself in the shoes of others and kind of help them to go out of that situation. And sympathy is just like pity, which is not very positive.
Okay.
I think sympathy is when you basically somehow relate to the feelings of the other person because you identify yourself. And empathy is that you support that person regardless of whether you accept or not or understand, but you try to basically put yourself in that position.
Okay. So yeah, I'm getting a lot of different angles or perspectives on what I think is the definition of the difference of the two. In both cases, you are understanding what that person is going through. But one is you got your emotions invested. The other one is you are, I think it's very nicely said by somebody, I think the lady there said, you are helping them from your place of self-respect. I know you didn't say the exact words, but I know that's what you meant. You see, one is when I am emotionally involved with the person who's relating their situation to me, and I'm crying with them, like one of the ABCD choices verse, versus one when I'm listening to them and I can relate to it, whether or not I've been through the situation. We are all creatures who we can emulate or we can synthesize what somebody is going through in our prefrontal cortex, which is part of our, the higher faculties of the human spirit. We can just listen to somebody and feel how it would be like if I was in that position. But the very important difference, in my opinion, is whether you're emotionally invested in that situation or not. And emotionally, I'll talk about that, has a big role in how you're able to respond. That you're actually helping the person or not is where the emotions play a tricky role.
So in empathy, there's no emotions involved.
Correct. You're not emotionally, caught up in that situation. Correct. Yes. Erika.
I feel other people's feelings a lot and deeply. And I use the word empathy to describe that phenomenon, which is actually one in which I do have a kind of detachment but the defining factor for me is I literally experience the feeling as if it were like a simulation to be run on my mainframe or whatever.
Right.
But yeah.
And how is that different than sympathy? So yeah, I got that part.
Sympathy, I just basically associate the actual presence of feelings for me with empathy, and then sympathy. I like Juan.
Yeah.
In my personal life, I think it's just more of like a intellectual relationship. I like you use the word. A person understands how they relate. So like I see sort of a more mediation of sympathy. For me, my experience of empathy is one in which I feel the sadness or the joy or the angst of the people around me, and so openness to that feeling, and then awareness of it are the defining factors in terms of like acting out of that empathy.
Got it. Okay. Yeah.
I think there's still some confusion, although several people have touched on this. If I'm not mistaken, I think I'm correct there. Sympathy is a general feeling of emotional support for a person or understanding. But empathy is a shared experience through some direct common experience. For example, let's say someone's discriminated against because of, let's say, their race. And someone from a different race could have sympathy. But someone from that exact same race would have empathy. They would empathize because they have that shared experience. We should all look this up just to, establish this.
And I also feel that, that looking it up, in my opinion, doesn't help me.
No, it's semantically.
Yeah,
semantically.
For me, it's like,
dictionary.
Yeah, because, you think about this, we process this, right? So what does it mean to me? I think that's, you'll find, you open up probably 3 different dictionaries, you might find 3 different definitions of it.
Yeah.
Okay, anyway, so but now your point is well taken. And when I listen to you, I'm thinking to myself, there's so many issues that I haven't been through that I feel actually quite, I feel like there is I have a perspective on that. I can feel what that person is feeling. But I think like some people said, and I tend to agree, that are you crying with that person, and when you're so emotionally involved, how you respond, I think, is different than how you respond when you're very steady and comfortable in your own skin, and be able to feel for that person and do the right thing for that person that time.
Through shared experience, though.
Through shared experience or not is that so that whether I've had past experience, that's where I disagree with what you're saying.
Yeah.
I don't think we need to have gone through the 60 million experiences that of all the different people that come in front of us. I think the human imagination is powerful enough that when you hear something, you feel for that with enough gravity where you feel like there is a need for you to do something.
Yeah, I understand your point. I think there's a stronger sense of
yeah,
support.
sure. I mean, if I've been through, obviously, then I get my emotions involved, and that's
Right.
I have my juices flowing.
Stronger,
Which I think at that
then you
point,
have more empathy when there's more of a strong, some type of shared experience.
Correct. Yeah.
Even if it's only emotional,
Yeah.
but it's a shared one.
Okay, I can understand that. Yes, ma'am.
I think of empathy as a knowing and some wisdom behind it. And being able to feel the emotion of the other person, but not really being in the emotion.
Right.
You're still being objective. It's like you witness what's going on with that person, and it gives you a clearer head so you can deal with their issues.
Very good.
I feel your pain.
I feel your pain, yeah.
I wanted to, basically exactly what you just said, that you can feel, in my experience, I'm able to feel other people's emotions and have a visceral feeling of that, and that not be my emotion, and not be my emotional stance.
Yeah.
Although it becomes difficult.
That's a very fine line when you flip and make that my issue, and I get caught up with that. Yes.
Where you ride the frequency.
That's right. When you let that
all
ride,
the way
that's
up to
right.
it.
That's right. That's right. That's a very common. Yes,
I've
Laurie.
had that experience too, but I wouldn't call it empathy. For me personally, I'm not discounting what you're saying. I've sensed other people's emotions from miles away. I know that they're going through something, but it's very different. I think empathy with Quentin, right?
Yes.
And he was saying empathy is also, it's not necessarily like with a discrimination example. Like if someone, I don't know, say, this is very apropos, discriminate against someone who's black. I don't know what it's like to be black, but I know what it's like to be teased when I was a kid, or something, or not accepted for who I am. So that's also empathy. Even though I'm not black, I don't know what it is to be black. I know what it's like to be rejected from something superficial.
So in other words, just simplifying that, I know what it feels to be in pain.
Yeah.
Comes down to that, right? Yeah. Okay. Alka.
I also feel like it depends on one's ability to understand, because some people might see the same pain, but my ability to understand that feeling or the sense of what that person's going through could be very different than somebody else's understanding of it. And the response to that would be the difference between empathy and sympathy.
How
how
depth
it's
of
perceived
your,
to be.
You're right. Okay. Yeah. Yes.
I think it's the ability to have an open heart, and then it doesn't matter what the other person's need or experience.
Right. That's a very good, nice way of putting it, yeah. To have an open heart, which means you're very grounded. Yeah, thank you. Okay, have we got all the definitions possible on empathy and sympathy?
Well, I just wanted, it's not really a total
yeah.
definition, but I just wanted to kind of add to the woman who just spoke here. I don't know your name. But I think that
Laurie. The lady on your row, the one in front of you?
In my row?
Yeah, Laurie, yeah.
The sensitivity to emotions is important. You know, like sociopaths don't have that. They lack emotional sensitivity, so they can do, or psychopaths can do, horrible things to people because they don't feel it. So that's just it's not a total definition, but I think it's an important aspect.
Right, I understand. So now you're talking about the other end of the spectrum where you neither feel sympathy or empathy. You completely.
Your heart is closed. You were talking about the heart.
Right.
Yeah. I guess
Yeah. So that's the other end of the totem pole where you have a condition where you're not able to relate to the feelings of others at all.
Right.
Whether emotional or unemotional. Okay. Thank you. Carl. Is Carl the last definition? I mean, how many possible definitions can we have for this thing? Yeah.
Forgiveness is inner strength, I think.
Forgiveness, inner strength.
And it's important in many situations.
Very true. Yeah, thank you.
That's like the proof of the empathy, when you can have the heart to forgive. I think.
Yeah.
In a certain sense. Good point, Paul.
Okay. Good. Nice.
Emotions,
I can write a book on the definitions of empathy and sympathy. I'm not even sure how many of them are sympathy and how many of them are empathy, but I think I got it. Okay, what are emotions? Let's talk about emotions. We talked so much about emotions getting in the way of sympathy versus crossing over to empathy. So, emotions, as such, are a result of a case of some sort of a misidentification. Okay, now this is a big statement. I know many of you probably come from a place that says, it's very good to be emotional. What we're talking about here is emotions is when you are in some sort of emotion from your inner stillness. When something has taken you away from being in your epicenter. And that wind could be many things. There's a very beautiful saying in the Bhagavad Gita, and I might have quoted in some of the previous workshops here. In the silence of a quiet mind, like a candle in a windless place, the self will reveal the self to the self. Yeah, repeat that. In the silence of a quiet mind, like a candle in a windless place, the self will reveal the self to the self. So that is the level of groundedness or centeredness that our ancient scriptures have professed for us as far as meditation. When you are so still that there is no wind making your flame flicker. If it's flickering, there is some emotion involved there. And in that, sthita pragya is the word they use in Sanskrit. Sthita pragya is in that steady state of stillness, you will find yourself. And then you will understand
yourself.
Yes, you will find yourself. First one, second one. Next. Others.
God.
Probably. You'll understand yourself, therefore you can relate to others, and ultimately you can understand the mind of God. So, the more emotional, I go back to this conversation around empathy and sympathy. The more emotional you are, the less intelligent you are. Okay? So the emotions tend to do the job of hijacking your higher faculties of intelligence. That's true, Charles? Okay, somebody agrees. Something good. Yes, Laurie.
Devil's advocate for a minute.
Yeah.
All emotions, like what if I'm watching a play or I see a piece of art that's so moving, I feel emotional and I start crying because it's so moving. Is that also, it means I'm not intelligent in that moment?
You're not at your highest intelligence at that moment, because then very likely if they sell you a ticket for the next play or they sell you a season's pass, it's very likely that you jump regardless of whether you actually wanted to do it half an hour ago or not. And that's a very popular ploy, by the way. They get you to the point where they put this smell in front of you. Restaurants, you're in the cooking business. You're walking, you don't even want popcorn. But the moment you smell popcorn, suddenly there is I have to have popcorn. Where did that come from? I'm not in my highest intelligence somehow in that situation.
But
As an example.
Performance.
The performance is very good, yes, and they, and the performers need to be fed, and they depend on your money, which is a good thing. But we're talking about just the ability.
She's the one with a free performance.
Oh, what if it's a free? Then they will probably sell you a T-shirt. How's that? Okay, or they'll sell you something.
I think we're talking about two different things, but I get what you're saying.
There's transcendent, like emotional states can take you to states of, I don't know if that's as far as you're going to take it, but transcendence. I work, like I throw concerts, so I do that because I've had some of the most profound spiritual insights while at live music gatherings, where I don't know if I even passed through, I guess, I don't know what that would be categorized as anymore, but I think that's my question then. There is this state that is beyond, quote, intelligence or beyond rational intelligence, definitely.
It's a high.
More complete.
Yeah.
It's a high, but it's also, I mean, like the whole time slows down and you can, I mean, I could feel and was aware in a sustainable way of unity. And I had almost basically, I have had out-of-body experiences in that way.
Sure.
Is that an
and this outer-body experience is, so I think I might have mentioned this in some of the previous workshops. So there's multiple ways. All of our sense organs, there's 5 of them, and we can have several other ways to induce ourselves to a spiritual or a state of high. Right? Yeah. So music does things, smell does it, sights do it, right? Having a beautiful sunset, sitting on a beautiful ocean in Kauai could do that for you, right? You feel that you see the, you see a beautiful, mountain with a sunrise or something, that could do it for you, right? So there's all of these things do take you to a state of high, but what the sages and saints have said over the years is that when you have a dependency on that only when there is music can I reach that state of a spiritual connection with the Supreme. I don't even know if you're... Yeah, so it's the high, right? There's several grades of the high. So all of these do it for us, and that's just why when you come to a ashram, usually they put that agarbatti, that incense stick, and they have a beautiful set up. Pictures, lighting, smell of the flowers. They probably even spray something, and then they have the temperature set up right. It's either too hot or too cold. You're not going to be able to get into that state of high. So there is no question that the senses do this for you, and there are, as many of you, especially in the state of California, know, there are substances that can do that for you, and people will argue they will fight you to the T, that they will say that is just as authentic and as profound as a spiritual experience that one gets through in any authentic form of meditation, not medication, meditation, right? So there is many ways to get that. The question is, where is my dependency? Is that something that is coming from my natural state? I can do it at my beck and call, at my will, independent of what the circumstances are, or do I have to keep going back to Erica's rock concert to be able to get that sense of high? And it's 6 months away, so till that 6 months I'm kind of waiting, twiddling my fingers, and so it's that kind of thing. So it's definitely a factor, but what is going to be your basis? You had a question or a comment.
Yeah, it sounds like basically addiction. If biochemical addiction that we all live with.
Correct. And I also would say that it may be an addiction, but it is actually not a bad thing if it does not have a low. Every high is associated with a downswing. There is a low side to it. And for example, I think things like music does not necessarily have that much of a low versus a chemically induced high. Where you're sitting in a state where the next day some of you might have heard, if not by practical experience, how you feel about it. Right? So, yes, there's some things which I think that they are good, which is why if you go to like any sort of a spiritual gathering, they have a kirtan. It's very common. We don't do it here. We play music, but there's a kirtan which actually has that the rhythm that there's that the vibrations of that music take you to that state, and if that is not going to drop you at the end of it, that's probably okay. Okay, but my point is something that is different. I'm saying, do you need to have a kirtan every time to reach a state of connectedness with the self and with the Supreme Being? Okay.
Yes.
Somebody had she had a question before you. Yes.
So I love listening to live music. That's like one of my favorite things to do, and when I'm there, I'm just totally there. It's like present with it, and that's like one of the things that helps me just sort of be in myself. But when I'm at work, I really need my intellectual faculties working I work with middle school age kids, so I really need to be clear about and make decisions, especially this time of year. They're full of energy and they're going 20 million different ways. So when I get emotional in that circumstance, it's like the intelligence. Like I do these things, like I'm trying to control the class. Like first thing, made a great relationship with them in the beginning of the year, had this wonderful relationship, everything was peaceful, people were, and now it's like, wait a minute, I don't have control, what's going on? And it's like, and that's, when you called and I'm like, oh, I gotta go to this tonight, because it's like, it's like what happened to just this really even keel. And I think you mentioned it with the purpose. Like you really have to know what you're there for and go back to that. But it's like so much the emotions just take away any of my right thinking.
Thank you for that practical everyday example.
But yeah, I agree with that. Music and all of that is so key to my person too, but when I deal with work.
It's just the control. I mean, the discipline you have as a musician. We are musicians. You're living with that, and you fulfill the will of a great composer, and you're dwelling, you're digging, you're in there to the nucleus, and you're getting emotional. But you have the discipline, and you have the intelligence to control what you have to do, to put it into life, to bring to life, to sound to many people, and to yourself. So you enjoy it in this extent. It's generalized, less intelligent. Not right.
Necessarily true. I think also in
it's highest intelligence to perform with highest emotion. I would say.
You would say so. Okay.
I also have a question.
Wait, there's many hands before you. Miranda.
I think an important distinction is emotions versus feeling.
Emotions versus feeling.
Yeah,
okay.
I think I don't know how to. Emotions are. I've thought about this a lot, and emotions are more like, I think really from the ego, but I think the emotions are much more from the subconscious or unconscious. They're like unresolved things that get triggered, and then you get carried away, and you get off center. But feelings, I think that might be more what's involved when you listen to beautiful music,
I like
and you get just you go into this expanded state.
I like that.
Yeah.
I think that's a very nice description. I think ties to. Man, what's your name? Gabrielle. What she was saying, the open heart.
Yeah.
The feelings open your heart, and then you're at the core.
Feelings disturb my intelligence, emotion. feelings
And,
are disturbing me.
and so feelings, in the sense, I think what she's saying is how expansive you feel. That's in that sense feeling, not feeling like I'm feeling that guy who's shaking his leg in the front row. That is that is affecting my feelings. That's different than I think what these ladies are saying is. It is my feeling of feeling of being in one with the universe, with God, with people, with everything. I feel like connected.
I forget everything.
Yeah.
It's more of a sacred kind of energy. Whereas emotion is more from the ego.
And somebody back here had a question.
I'd like to.
Yeah.
Are you trying to?
Yeah.
In this case, what I see is emotional. It means more emotions out of control, attached perhaps to anger, to extreme sadness, to irrationality. Yes, then you do act less intelligent because you have no clear mind at that point. You're just reacting. You're reacting, and you can't think clearly. So that's how I see the way it's written up there.
And what?
Well, it's on the same route that she's going right now.
Yeah.
There are good emotions, there are maybe negative emotions, the ones you mentioned, but the concept of how much do I eradicate emotions out of me? Because it's a part of me that is human. So having emotion is how much of my humanity do I need to eradicate?
And then you might argue and say sorrow is a part of life. It's part of so deeply ingrained human habit. And you might say then, why do we have this conversation about trying to eradicate sorrow? Maybe that should be part of life, and that's fine.
No, but sorrow is not bad or good. It's something that is real. So you can't live a life without sorrow. There are moments in your life that you experience sorrow and then you move on.
Yeah, so
but
I think
you can't be stuck in sorrow. But
so the purpose of why we even come to places like this is I think we're trying to understand these aspects of ourselves. For example, one of the things that I got out of being around these folks for the last 16 years, if I had to pick one thing, is on this subject. I have learned to understand I am not my feelings. I am not my thoughts.
That's right.
Thoughts come and go. Feelings come and go. Emotions come and go. Am I going to respond to life, whatever the situation may be, when I'm in flight with the wave of that feeling, emotion, or the thought, is the question. And if I do so, some of the times I probably get away with it. Some of the times I'm doing things which are, like some of you mentioned, irrational. And if that's the case, maybe I should watch it and let it pass and enjoy that scene while it's happening, but then come from a place of responding, not while I'm riding that current, but when I'm actually back on my feet on the ground. That is one thing that I would say I have learned at the Brahma Kumari Center in all of these years that has helped me immensely. And this is what, when I share with people who are going through emotional situations, whether at work, in family, relationships, etc., this is, I think, my single largest weapon, if you will, to be able to respond, to be able to help any individual. Okay. There was another hand up after Juan. I can't remember who that was. Okay, so if you don't have a comment,
well,
that's
briefly, it's a matter of surrendering the feeling, getting past the feeling whenever it comes up. If you have that option to let it go, not grasping, not clinging.
Correct. That's very good. So there are three things that I say that one needs to learn when an emotion / thought or a feeling comes up. One, don't hold on to it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Don't resist it, let it come, because it's going to that bottle is going to burst if you try to cap it. Third is, don't get carried away by it.
Right.
So all three of those things I think are important, and then the thing will come and go, and you would have learned something.
And all of a sudden, the driver, let's say the husband in this case, rear ends somebody, and then the wife shouts at him, and he says, "But you distracted me." And they're in an argument, and it's just, the emotion is different than in the business setting. So then, this is when, more emotional, less intelligent, and not only that, but then the question about music. The question is how to bring harmony to emotions.
Okay.
That's really the ultimate.
Okay, so in that conversation that just happened here, I've seen myself change over the years in blaming everybody, somebody. If it's nobody sitting with me, it's a guy in the next car who is responsible for how I'm feeling right now. I think that dialogue, whether it's inside my head or with somebody, I think that has changed. And again, if I had to net it down to one thing that I've taken away from the Brahma Kumaris in 16 years is what I am feeling right now is really a result of how I let a situation bother me or distract me or irritate me or make me feel good or bad or whatever, right? So I am responsible for it. So even if in this case, let's say there's his wife sitting next to me, I don't have one, but let's say somehow, it emerged, friend, whatever. She says, why do you always do this or something, right? What was the first statement? How does the thing start in your story?
Oh, the driver could say he was distracted.
No. But distraction is if she's distracted. But what did she say first in your story? Whatever. Okay. Okay. Why do you always rear-end people? Okay, let's go. Let's just say that was an opening clause of that dialogue there. So my response, I think, is that I'm not going to say anything right now. At this moment in time, I'm just going to sit still and imagine magically that energy will fly past me, and because I'm not responding, she will not have anything else to say.
Right, you're showing harmony then.
Right.
Good.
Which is, hopefully some progress by understanding how to be emotionally unaffected. Miranda.
It's like not engaging in that duality, kind of like right-wrong.
Yeah.
Refusing to play that game.
Correct. Just refusing to play the game. And that's a beautiful way. And again, in India, they say, there's a very famous saying that you can't clap with one hand. You need two hands to clap. You know what that means? If somebody claps and you're not there, it's just going to be silent. Right? When you show up, now you're in the game. You better get ready for the long run now. Okay, so, anyway.
Zen Kohen.
Huh?
Is that the Zen Kohen you call it?
I don't know, but this is something that we grew up hearing. This is
one hand.
Do haath se taali bajti hai, which means you need two hands to make a clap. Okay, so emotional intelligence is being able to identify and name emotions. Gosh, if you can figure this, if you can do this, that's cool. When those kids are doing this to you and say, okay, I'm feeling, something's about to come out. If I can look and name that feeling, I am getting irritated, I am getting flustered, I am whatever, you realize that it loses its power. It's like, when there's a thief coming in and you look at that person, immediately you dissolve that person's ability to do mischief to you. Right? So it's like that. So when you don't realize and it comes out, it's kind of too late. Okay, so this is a nice little trick. Emotional intelligence is able to identify and name the emotion. I love this quote. I think it's a nice way to summarize what we talked about. Anytime we feel emotionally uncomfortable, stressed, or negative in any way, it's a sign that we're avoiding our responsibility for ourselves. It is a sign that we have some learning to do. Folks, in the last few days before I even started this preparation for this emotional intelligence talk, I've been actually working on this aspect. Anything that you say, if it's bothering me, it's not about you, it's about something I need to look within myself and say, what is it that is raking up within me? Mirror. There's a mirror, that's right. Some sort of an external impetus to stir up something that is surfacing. And it's coming out in my internal mirror, which is my mind's eye.
And it disappears right away.
Yeah. No, but sometimes it doesn't disappear right away. Oh, you mean if you observe it, then it disappears right away. Okay, thank you. So that you're actually giving the antidote, yeah. Okay? This is, for somebody who's just gotten on the spiritual path, this could be quite a tall order. But I tell you folks, this is the goal. When somebody says something and it's stirring up an emotion, ask yourself, what is it that I have held back within me that is being shown to me. Yeah?
I'm feeling something right now.
Yeah. Can you control it, or it has to come out?
No, it doesn't. I was thinking.
Can you let it pass?
No, I was saying, no, Sister Norton's
Yeah.
doing just fine. Why should I say anything? But now I'm feeling something, so now I feel that it's important to say something for myself, because I'm an emotional dynamic personality, and I've really thought about the difference between feelings and emotions, because I can see where emotions, ego in motion, doesn't serve me, and it just doesn't serve me. But when I'm in tune with my feelings, then I'm simple. My mind is, it's like almost like I feel there's an intelligence happening when I'm in tune with my feelings. And if I listen to them, they tell me, they give indications.
Beautiful, thank you. So the spoken, they say the horse's mouth. Is that a better analogy than a horse's mouth? Really, I mean, is there a better synonym for that? Okay, you get the message. I think, and so for somebody who's actually lived a life of somebody being a very emotional person, as she's saying, and I think it comes from a great, profound sense of authenticity. So thank you. So defining, so that beings, and also this is very important what Sister Elizabeth said. Don't become insensitive. It's not, we're not asking you to be unemotional like a cabbage who's staring at somebody who is somebody speaking to you. Saying that what is that, all of this information, these expressions, all of this input that I'm getting through all the senses, how does myself, from that stillness, how do I want to respond? Taking a deep breath before blurting it out. That's right. Now I tell you folks, I'm saying all this to you, it's also like I'm making notes for myself as I'm speaking. It's not like you have the 27th Buddha standing in front of you. Claudia.
Yeah. So I used to always tell my friends, because I had this one friend who would always get jealous from her boyfriend talking to other girls. So I would always tell her, you can't really help what you're feeling, but you can help what you react. So if you feel jealous, what is really making you jealous? And what are you going to do? Because if you just go and blurt it out and yell at him, I don't like you hanging out with that girl, that's not going to take you anywhere. So is that kind of what we're going?
Correct. And I think you're saying it very nicely, and it ties very well to, what's your name, school teacher? What's her name? Karen. So I think what you're saying is so tightly knit with what Karen was saying, because if you come from the space of just blurting it out, you're actually losing that year-long relationship that you built. So in this case, maybe multiple years long. You're not actually helping anything positive come out of the situation, because you're emotional. You're making that person going to become emotional, and then both of you start doing that, car scenario that Quentin just described, right? So you just bring in more people, right, in the process. So, yeah, to be able to see that, what I'm about to say, and if it comes from a place of authenticity, I think that the ability for it to actually make the other person feel what you're feeling is far greater. You all know what I'm talking about, moms, especially dads. I've seen this. I've seen the same statement said by somebody who is a novice on the spiritual path get up in front of people and talk, versus somebody who's actually lived that experience, come from a place of knowing it versus or feeling it, experienced it, and that person says the exact same sentence, it pierces me like an arrow. I will never forget that, because it has an energy. I know some people are smiling, they know what I'm talking about, right? You guys get what I'm saying? Very important. So it's important to really let that emotions pass and see what is it that I really would like to express to this person. And I tell you folks, through that there's another thing that we learn here in the Raj Yoga, which is the power to withdraw Okay, so those of you who've taken the Raj Yoga course, they talk about the power to withdraw ties to what Claudia is saying. Sometimes that girlfriend situation, in this case, the girlfriend is not able to control her emotions. She has not got all this training that we're talking about. So she just blurts out stuff, right? And the blurting out usually lasts for anything between 30 minutes to 3 hours. Those of you who've been in situations like that, right? So now it becomes very important for the person who's receiving, if that person is a conscious human being, like most of you are in this room, it requires that you become very, very still. Why? To get past the barrage of the comments that are going on and to perceive what is the soul really trying to say. And that might come after the 2 hour and 58th minute. Well, sometimes we lose patience by that time. So then withdrawing helps you that your senses are not exposed to being run over, bombarded. You are withdrawing and you're becoming very still within yourself and you're saying, what is this soul really trying to convey to me? Then I can help this person. This can be a person in distress. This can be a person who is emotionally involved with you. Whatever. A person at school doesn't know how, doesn't feel like want to come back to class and thinks that soccer is the most important thing at this hour. Whatever it may be the situation, right? Did I see another hand up after Claudia? Yes, Alka.
I would just like to share something from the little stuff that I have learned here. I found myself to find a tool to change my emotions to coming down to be practical and slow my thoughts down to be more able to handle the situation, so to speak. And it just so happened that I came to this phrase, like in India, we always call our mom, and Aigo Mai is the statement I came up with, so I don't know how, but it has been happening for the last 2 years.
Say it again?
Aigo Mai. I used to call my mom Mai.
Mai, yeah.
And it would be like calling out to her.
Yeah.
But it just became a sentence in the office to the point where when I said that, everybody knew that I was trying to transfer my emotions to calm down. And interestingly, it was so funny the other day, a colleague of mine said, Aigo Mai. And it was like everybody just shocked. And it works, she says. It is just a way of transforming my emotions that were just going wild to just bring myself to calm down. Because I'm learning very little how to change my approach to these, multiple barrages of emotions that come up. But it's just like something, a tool for that 1 second to calm down, to approach it.
Very good. Yeah, that's some sort of like
a break or a breathing.
They call it a mantra.
She doesn't know what that means. It means a lot to me.
Correct.
But
and it could be all it is. Sometimes many of the mantras are, what's your name?
My name?
Yeah.
Ursula.
Ursula. So it could be sometimes, many of the mantras, they actually have a breathing pattern associated with it. Like the Om is basically, the Om is nothing but it's really a long, deep exhale, right? So it's a breath. So like Ursula said, these things, these little mantras are actually working on some of the physiological needs at that time, which is take a deep breath and pause. Yeah. And also, I wanted to say something about Alka's honest sharing, that she's saying that, I've been coming here and some things I'm working, but many times I'm not able to control emotions. I want to make 2 observations about that, folks. So, typically men tend to be on the opposite end of the spectrum from women, which is we are not the emotional, we are the more of sitting on the IQ and the technical abilities, and we want to perfect something, and we're doing it right, so what's wrong? Why don't you understand? Technically, by the book, this is perfect, right? So we come from that space, and I believe spirituality is that wonderful tool that centers you no matter which side your pendulum has swung. If you're a deeply emotional person, you come to the place where your IQ and your TQ, your other skills, your practical skills are enhanced. And if we are, some of us guys, we're sitting on the other end where we have 0 EQ, it's a pendulum where, through what Sister Elizabeth said, it helps me to get in touch and be very authentic about how I'm feeling right now. You know? So there's two things. And the third thing I'd like to say about that is, any of the amount of stuff you're going to listen, you can be coming here 20 years. I will give it to you in writing and I'll put $100 down right now. It will not make a difference till you meditate daily. You have to meditate daily, 20 minutes a day. This is like, you know, I've learned stuff sitting in the book, put another book in the shelf. What good is that to me? I've got to take the recipe, eat the thing, and digest that food, which is what meditation is. That's when I build strength. Okay? And the other analogy, those of you who have traveled in Eastern countries, we travel a lot by trains in those countries. Imagine you got off the train, you get down, you're looking for a porter, which is usually a typical scene. You find a porter, no problem. Let's say you don't find a porter one given day. You've got this wonderful American large suitcase, extra large pillows, whatever you carry inside that, all the 17 pairs of dresses that you need to take on this holiday. You don't find the porter, you're not going to stand there and say, oh, I'm not strong enough, so I'm going to actually work out and make myself strong. You don't do that then. You have to have had the strength in your system to be able to help yourself at that time. So when a situation hits, whether it's a car situation, whether it's a school situation, whether it's a family, boyfriend, girlfriend situation, whatever situation, you need to strengthen yourself. Otherwise, this stuff is just like watching TV. Just you keep listening from one ear, gets out the other ear. Deborah had a question or comment.
Oh, I was just going to mention a funny thing someone told me about raising children and having a tool, because they're always sometimes getting in this and that and trying to push your buttons. And she told me, before you say anything, before you get mad, you swallow 3 times and then take a breath. So have you ever tried to swallow, 3 times before you say something? By that time you probably forgot what you
That's very nice. That's a very nice tip. One of my executives in my company, I used to be pretty close to this guy. He used to tell me that this concept of computers was such a wonderful thing. He says before, people would call each other and they say something, you say something. Now, he says, between the time that I process the thing that he has said this to me and I have to turn it down into my fingers and I have to type it, there's a hope that it will translate into something better. So basically what they say, the space that you create between the stressor and the response, right? So between the action and the reaction, the more the space is. I wish one day we start doing something with our feet, so there's a better hope that it will actually completely dissolve and dissipate by that time.